Hello everyone, this is Jason from Primetime Aquatics. I want to bring to you a cool fish that is in this tank right here. It is the Green Kubotai Rasbora. It's an amazing fish that doesn't need a lot of space, that shows great color. Let's go ahead and take a closer look. So what we're looking at here is a 14-gallon bow front. It's an aqua top tank. The filtration that you see here is an Oazi filter, internal filter with an aqua top light. This is a great tank and it's the perfect setup for the Green Kubotai Rasboras, which you will see predominantly throughout this video. They are the fish that are, as you might imagine, a little bit of fluorescent green. In this tank, we also have some magenta mystery snails, some galaxy rasboras, ember tetras, chili rasboras, and this is an awesome little mix, as well as some pygmy cory cats. So these Green Kubotai Rasboras, they come from Southeast Asia. The water parameters there are typically around neutral or so on the pH, a little bit on the softer side. Temperatures, there's a range there depending on the system in which you find these fish. I think what makes them so interesting is as we go through this video, you're going to see a small fish that has a lot of really nice color. When I say small, the size is going to range somewhere around 3/4 to 1 inch. Females are going to be a little bit larger, a little bit rounder, and again, you see that nice vibrant green color. And believe it or not, when it comes to freshwater tropical fish, there aren't that many green fish options. By the way, if you are looking for these fish, because they can be hard to find, check out Flip Aquatics, flipaquatics.com. That's where we got all the fish that you see in this video today. They came in healthy and happy, and as you can see, they are doing great. The other nice thing about this fish, because it stays so small, this is the perfect fish for those smaller tanks, usually around 10 gallons or more, and you are going to give them a nice habitat. These fish are also very peaceful. As you'll see throughout the video, they don't tend to bother other fish. They don't tend to be hard on one another. I wouldn't say that they necessarily school tightly, but they definitely feel more comfortable in a group. Now, when it comes to their overall lifespan, I think you're doing well if you can get somewhere between 3 to 5 years from your Green Kubotai Rasboras. Tank mates. As I already mentioned, we have these fish in with other small nano fish, so some good options. You could do as we've done here and keep them with galaxy rasboras, otherwise known as celestial pearl danios. We have the pygmy cories. We have the chili rasboras, small tetras, so neons, ember tetras, rummy nose would work. In addition to the rasboras that we have here, you could also take a look at the exclamation point rasbora, the dwarf emerald rasbora. These are really good options. Cherry barbs might work out fairly well. If you want some kind of a centerpiece looking fish, your sparkling gouramis or your honey gourami, those could be good options. I would really like to see these fish with peacock gudgeons. I think that would be a cool mix. When you're looking for your scavengers and your cleanup crew, Otocinclus will work really well. Just standard cory cats would work just fine. And you can keep these fish with shrimp. Now, will these fish potentially eat shrimplets, little tiny baby shrimp? Maybe, but they are so small that they probably wouldn't put a serious dent in your shrimp populations, and most likely they would completely ignore adult shrimp because the adult shrimp in some cases would be larger than these fish. Now for the water parameters, some things to consider. Again, from the temperature perspective, they have a decently wide range of temperatures, somewhere in the low 70s, let's say around 72 or so, up to 80 degrees. We keep this tank, the entire fish room is heated, and most of our tanks are right around 78 to 80 degrees. pH is again a relatively wide range, somewhere between 6 and 8. Our pH ranges from an 8 to an 8.2, and these fish have been living a healthy life in that water. Water hardness, as I mentioned in nature, water hardness is on the softer side, but they have a wide range of tolerances for both your GH and your KH, somewhere between 2 and 10 degrees. Again, for us, our pH is higher, our water hardness is higher. We are closer to that 10 degrees on both our KH and our GH. Now, when it comes to water quality, as with all fish, you do want to have good water quality. What does that mean? That means you don't want to have any ammonia. You don't want to have any nitrite in the tank. In other words, your tank is fully cycled. If you don't know what that means, check out the video in the upper right-hand corner. That will go over the whole process of how we cycle tanks. But we don't want to have any ammonia or nitrite, and we try to keep our nitrates around 20 parts per million or less. In a planted tank like this, we'll let it go as high as 30 parts per million. But we want stable water parameters, and we want to make sure our tank is fully cycled. Now, feeding these fish is not an issue at all. We feed all of our fish North Fin flakes, and in this case, North Fin micro pellets. They also would enjoy some frozen brine shrimp, and they really love live baby brine shrimp. They think that's a wonderful treat. As I've mentioned already, tank size, you want to try to be about 10 gallons or greater, and there's a couple reasons for that. Reason number one, larger volumes of water, it's easier to stabilize water parameters. Two, these fish are fairly active. As you can see throughout the video, they like to swim around. They're some of the most active fish in this tank. And three, we want to keep them in decent sized groups. And so ideally, you want to have at least 8 to 10 of these fish in your aquarium to make them feel comfortable, because in nature, they generally exist in larger groups. And so a 10-gallon tank is going to give you the ability to do that comfortably. As you can see, in terms of decorations, these fish are going to thrive in an environment where there is structure. And so here we've used a sand substrate. It doesn't really matter with these fish if the substrate is sand or gravel. They do not interact with it. I will say, ideally, if you really want these fish to show maximum color, a darker substrate is going to allow you to see that green color a little bit more vibrantly, along with a darker background. So sand or gravel, it doesn't matter. You can see here we've got lots of structure. We've got rocks, we've got driftwood, we've got live plants. You don't need live plants, but the more structure you can give them, the more secure they are going to feel. Now, if you're looking at breeding these fish, they do breed in captivity. It's not necessarily an easy fish to breed and raise the fry. Typically, like most Rasboras, they are egg scatterers, which means you get a group of these fish, you put them in a tank, let's say around 10 to 20 gallons. You can use Java moss, you can use a spawning mop, and you can do one of two things. After they scatter the eggs, you can remove the Java moss and the spawning mop into a new tank and let the fish hatch out, or you can remove the adults from the original tank to a different tank. Either way, it's going to take a couple, 2 or 3 days, depending on temperature, for the eggs to hatch, and when they do, you are going to be dealing with extremely small fish. So small that live baby brine is not going to be effective, at least right away, so they're going to need infusoria, some specialized fry food. If it's a well-established tank with, let's say, a lot of Java moss, they can feed from the organisms that are going to be within that Java moss, and then usually after a week or two, you can switch to live baby brine, and then finally to regular foods. But again, this is not an easy fish necessarily to raise the fry because they are so tiny. You do have to separate the fry from the adults because the adults will eat the eggs and they will eat the fry as they hatch. But this is an absolutely awesome fish. As you can see, a lot of color, a lot of personality, a lot of action, and it can really enhance that smaller aquarium, 10 gallons or above. So hope you enjoyed the video. If you are looking for more information on fish to keep with these fish, check out the description below. Appreciate you being here, and we'll see you in the next one.